Gavin Newsom, if you're listening to this, you're a failure. Mayors are actually some of the most powerful people in the country. The police are responsive to the mayor. The building code's responsible to the mayor. The homeless, mayors are very, very powerful. So he was mayor of San Francisco. Would you let your son walk the streets of San Francisco unaccompanied at 1 a.m.? No, you wouldn't. I'm sorry. Your son can't walk the streets of the city that you were in.
What happens when a walking, talking TED Talk faces off against a human wrecking ball with a podcast mic? You get a complete meltdown, California style. Gavin Newsom walked in with his usual Hollywood hair and recycled talking points, but Charlie Kirk came swinging like an overcharged wrecking crane at a tofu buffet. This wasn't a debate, it was a verbal takedown in broad daylight. And if you thought Newsom could handle the fire, think again, because he showed up to a barbecue carrying nothing but a salad. You need to see how this all went down.
In fact, we are course correcting after 4 failed years under Joe Biden and all of the woke stuff and the anti-common sense movement. Gavin Newsom had me on his podcast, and I was shocked all of a sudden where he decided to diverge away from the orthodox opinion in the Democrat Party, which is as simple as saying that it's not fair that a biological man can compete in female.
Before we move on, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because you really don't want to miss this one. Picture a man who looks like he stepped straight out of a toothpaste commercial, convinced he was born to save the world, but in reality, saved no one, and only managed to make brunch more expensive. That's Gavin Newsom, the walking, talking Instagram filter of politics, running California as if he's starring in a film titled How to Make Paradise Unlivable in 10 Easy Street EPs. And then there's Charlie Kirk, who usually rants into microphones like someone cut off his Wi-Fi, finally facing a Target slicker than his own pomade. Gavin, it seems like you've never met a hair product you didn't fall in love with.
Newsom. The hell?
Oh, no,
the hell is... who's a better
first of all,
actor? I'm not sure. They're both up for an award.
I was watching him on MSNBC. He's got a new hand motion. I was going to text him. It's this. It's got usually it's kind of this, and then he's doing this. He was doing this thing on MSNBC. He's doing this whole thing. Look, he is the fakest person I think I've ever met in my entire life. So synthetic, and honestly, that's very dangerous, incredibly dangerous. He's the type of person that could just stare at you oh yeah.
Charlie didn't need much to take Gavin apart, just a couple of pie charts, a working calculator, and maybe a highlight reel of every disastrous policy California's favorite silver fox has proudly signed with a straight face and a smirk. What Gavin has done to California isn't leadership at all. It's performance art with a budget bigger than most countries and results smaller than his approval rating outside of coastal yoga studios.
Being the inaugural guest, it wasn't really even sure what I was going into, right? Because at the front end, it was like, hey, there'll be no, gotcha questions. It'll just be a discussion, which was largely true. And secondly, when you arrive and they tell you all this stuff, they're like, oh, his son is a fan and all that. It was so over the top, charm offensive. I was like, are you going to want to become a member?
Let's start with the basics. California, once known as the land of sunshine and startups, is now apparently the land of medieval plagues, literally. While Gavin was busy giving TED Talks on equity and climate justice, his cities were turning into live-action Oregon Trail reenactments, except without the wagons and with hepatitis outbreaks instead. The streets are lined with tents, sidewalks are covered in what we'll politely call organic matter, and Newsom is still on Twitter posting about resilience as if he's running a poetry slam instead of an entire state.
It's really interesting. It was obvious that the governor wants to move to the middle on a lot of the political issues that the Democrat Party has been on the unpopular side of. The one that's making most headlines, obviously, is biological men in women's sports. And he said he totally agrees with me, and that's a direct quote.
Were you surprised by that?
I was a little taken aback. I anticipate a little bit more of a politician answer. You could kind of see that laced in, but then he just bluntly said, look, I agree.
Let's talk about homelessness, because Gavin certainly won't unless it's to roll out another multi-billion-dollar plan that somehow produces more consultants than actual homes. He spent more on homelessness than the entire GDP of a small island nation, yet the only thing rising faster than the budget is the number of people sleeping on sidewalks. It's as if he took the slogan "Build Back Better" and swapped build with talk, back with tweet, and better with you're on your own.
In fact, we are course correcting after 4 failed years under Joe Biden and all of the woke stuff and the anti-common sense movement. Gavin Newsom had me on his podcast, and I was shocked all of a sudden where he decided to diverge away from the orthodox opinion in the Democrat Party, which is as simple as saying that it's not fair that a biological man...
And then there's crime. California has gotten so progressive that even the criminals look confused, steal under $950, and it's not a felony, it's practically a lifestyle. Gavin's version of justice reform feels like an apology note taped to the doors of a ransacked Walgreens. Retail stores are leaving faster than tourists who accidentally booked a hotel in downtown San Francisco, but Gavin's likely too busy prepping his next press conference to blame the crime wave on climate change or systemic inequality caused by anyone but himself. His idea of preparing kids for the future is keeping them out of classrooms, lowering standards, and handing out diplomas like participation trophies. California's public schools have turned into a tragic contest of how low the bar can go, while Gavin brags about equity as students struggle to read beyond the login instructions on an iPad screen.
Really interesting interview. What it came off like, it was like Charlie was trying to teach Gavin how to be a human being. Gavin came off like a Hollywood actor, somebody who is disconnected from regular people, and when he is around us, he has to kind of conform, like an alien almost. You're living over there on a whole different planet, and then you come down.
Under Gavin's watch, California has gone from top tier to total mess faster than you can say state income tax. And that tax rate, it's progressive, all right. So progressive it hunts down anyone making more than minimum wage who dares to stay within state lines. His tax policies feel like a haunted house. You walk in wide-eyed and hopeful, but leave screaming with empty pockets. People are fleeing California like it's a sinking yacht, while Gavin stays on board giving speeches about how the rising water is somehow proof his climate plan is working. Tech companies, families, retirees, everyone is packing up and heading for safer ground. But Gavin shrugs it off, calls it a challenge, and blames Texas, as if Texas broke into California, raised the housing prices, and plastered poop emojis all over San Francisco sidewalks. At this point, California under Newsom is one flickering light bulb away from turning into Mad Max. His answer to climate change has been to aggressively shut down power plants before lining up any backups, which means rolling blackouts, energy shortages, and lectures from a man who charges his electric car with power from a grid he can't keep on. California has more sunlight than a Pixar movie, and somehow they still can't keep the AC running during a heat wave.
You didn't do a 4-year degree. And
well, yeah, because I represent most of the country. You guys have become so college credentialed and educated that you guys snobbishly look on the muscular class of this country, the people that kept things afloat and running during COVID. Yeah, I mean, the majority of the country didn't go to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Stanford, Caltech, or Cal Berkeley, right?
Are you arguing for the disestablishment, the end of higher education?
I think it's going to happen no matter what. Am I advocating for the end of the pursuit?
Let's talk about climate, Gavin's supposed area of expertise. This is the man who blames every wildfire on climate change while refusing to take the most basic forest management steps that could keep the state from going up in smoke every summer. Instead of thinning forests, he thins out common sense and points the finger at people who drive trucks. At this point, wildfires aren't acts of God anymore, they're acts of Gavin. And then there's his presidential fantasy. Oh, he wants it badly. He denies it, but the hair gel doesn't lie. He's been crisscrossing red states like an influencer on a redemption arc, lecturing governors who actually run functioning economies while pretending California isn't bleeding people and businesses in a slow-motion economic collapse. His every move is a filtered photo shoot, and he governs like he's auditioning for the lead role in his own political biopic, a film that could only be titled The Audacity of Hair.
Not listen, ever. Maybe, is this the tipping point for him? Did you get the feeling he really wants to change?
I don't know. I think he wants to be president, Sean, more than anything else on the planet. I think you can agree he has more political ambition than almost anybody in the Democrat Party. And I think he understands that the entire country is moving.
And the cherry on top is that Gavin still insists it's all working. He claims California is a model for the nation, which is technically true if the model is meant as a warning. Want your state to collapse under bloated bureaucracy, unaffordable housing, failing schools, rampant crime, and constant wildfires? Just follow Gavin's playbook and mark your calendar. All you'll need is sunscreen, a tent, and a backup generator. And then comes Charlie Kirk, finally doing what so many have been shouting for someone to do: call out the madness, because someone had to. Gavin has coasted for years on cheekbones and climate buzzwords, treating California like a movie set gorgeous from a distance but pure chaos once you look behind the curtain. It's all style with no substance, all spin with no steering wheel. When the state budget falls off a cliff, his first instinct is to spend more. When businesses leave, he raises their taxes. When schools fail, he rewrites the metrics. When homelessness explodes, he builds shelters nobody uses. It's like playing a game of reverse Monopoly, where he pays you to leave the hotel and bankrupts himself on purpose.
Is that at a lot of these schools, they're not pursuing what is good, true, and beautiful. It's become the Oppression Olympics and a weaponized complaint seminar of people sitting in the circle and finding out who's been offended the most that day.
Some would argue $1 million more in lifetime earnings, more likely to get married, less likely to get divorced, more likely to be civically engaged with college degrees. And you would say to
all
that,
of this is true. It's just
California, once the shining beacon of the American dream, has now turned into a dystopian sandbox for Gavin's endless ideological experiments. It's no longer the land of opportunity, it's the land of permanent road construction, $7 gas, and 10,000-word mission statements that add up to nothing. And don't be fooled by the Hollywood smile. Beneath it is a man who governs with the emotional detachment of a tech CEO delivering a TED Talk in the middle of a layoff. He says all the right words, just never in the right order, a disaster with perfect teeth. Charlie didn't even have to destroy Gavin. All he had to do was show the receipts, point to the numbers, and connect the dots between his policies and the smoking crater they left behind. Because Gavin Newsom isn't just a failed governor, he's the patron saint of delusional leadership, a man so obsessed with his own greatness that he either doesn't see his state begging for relief, or worse, sees it and simply doesn't care. After all, he'll always have the French Laundry.
same on my show. Anytime Gavin Newsom can come on the show. So, as from a presidential standpoint, Trump's going to be the nominee, so it's kind of just a waste of time. I do think it's actually healthy to have a conversation, though. And this is why I wish DeSantis would just, right now, see where he's at, drop out, become a great governor, and reassert that he's been a great governor and continue to be. I'll say nothing but positive things. But the national conversation is there are really two Americas being built right now. And California is a hellhole.
And if Gavin ever does make it to the White House, don't worry by then. Most of California will already be living in Texas. If there's one thing Gavin Newsom has mastered, it's losing Californians faster than a bad Tinder date loses interest. He's drained the middle class like a clearance rack at Whole Foods, sending teachers, nurses, and small business owners packing. They're not fleeing for politics. They're fleeing because they're tired of paying luxury prices for pothole-ridden roads, random blackouts, and housing that costs more than a kidney on the black market. California has more coastline than almost any other state. Yet somehow Gavin's managed to make flushing a toilet feel like committing a war crime. Droughts, fires, blackouts, natural disasters in California are now indistinguishable from daily life. Gavin didn't inherit a crisis. He built one, slapped solar panels on top, and then lectured the rest of the country to do better.
Beliefs at all, just leave the Democrat Party. That's my advice to him. If you really want to be in elected office that bad, just leave the Democrat Party and just go run as like a moderate Republican and just have some sort of...
Charlie Kirk pointing that out wasn't destruction, it was long overdue reality therapy. Gavin's entire political playbook is to break everything, gaslight the public into believing it's their fault, and then host a summit about reimagining what already worked just fine. He's got more buzzwords than actual solutions: sustainable, inclusive, equitable. It's like a progressive Mad Libs with no verbs. And behind the curtain, it's the same lobbyists, corporate donors, and bureaucrats armed with PowerPoint slides that never fix a thing. In truth, Charlie didn't need to do much at all, because Gavin Newsom has been destroying himself all along. Charlie just showed up with a flashlight and revealed the wreckage. California is now a cautionary tale. Gavin is the narrator, and the rest of the country is left hoping he doesn't take this act national.